Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Welcome to Expedition Networking. This is Frank Agan. Today I have on the program Michael Quigley. He is the founder and president of Kataholos. And it's I'll let you tell us about what you guys do. I know it's sort of a learning and communication platform. But I want to hear about this journey, what you've created and how you got to this place, because this was not your original destination. Let's put it that way.
No, it wasn't, Frank. Thank you. Well, it's good to be with you, and it is quite a story. So yeah, I'll get straight into it. So my name is Michael Quigley, as you said, and I'm a teacher. And I didn't want to be a teacher, and I still don't particularly want to be a teacher. It just seems to be happening. So I come from a family of teachers, and I became a primary school teacher. So little children, you guys will call it, it's like 1st to 6th grade, something like that.
Yeah, grade school. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love teaching kids. They were great fun. You know, they're hilarious, and there's always something going on. But the job, especially in England, it's pretty challenging, and there were a lot of bits I wasn't really enjoying. And what ended up happening was I ended up having pretty much almost like a breakdown. We had a family friend who was dying, actually. We had to give him palliative care, and if you've ever been through something like that, it's pretty challenging. And unfortunately, I wasn't supported at work, and I had to have time away, and it was pretty bad. You know, if you go through something like that, it's very challenging. But to help somebody die well, you know, get straight into it, is quite a privilege. It's quite a special thing to go through. And I told him I loved him the day before, you know, he died, and then he died. And I went back to work, and I thought, okay, that was pretty profound. And I'd changed, something in me had shifted, and I was like, I'm still liking teaching, but I think I want to do something else. I think I want to write. I think I want to work with adults. And I left, I quit, because I realized I love training and teaching people, but not necessarily as a teacher in a mainstream school. So I'd always been into fitness, so I worked as a personal trainer for a bit, and then I started writing my first ideas down, really, and that became what ended up being, but it is, first book. So I had this philosophy, and you got to look after your mind, but also your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual side, your digital side, and put it all together into a book. And it was my accountant who said, you should form a company there. You've got IP. I didn't know what IP was, Frank. Like, I was like, yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was less than 4 years ago. And from then it's just gone like that. So we started training teachers, then that branched out to online training, group training. We have an online learning platform. And it's just taking that love of learning. It's just developing people. It just doesn't have to be in the classroom. I say to people, you know, when you're at school and you had that one teacher who's like, I got your back. You come to me if you have any problems, right? For the year, like I'm your person to go to. And that's what I do now. It just happens to be for adults. So, yeah, that's the story, kind of where I came from, really.
Yeah, well, let's back up. What's the title of the book? Because this is an audio-only podcast.
Yeah, sure. So it's Guidelines for a Holistic, Happy Life. So what I realized was, if you want to just kind of like get your life together, get your health together in all the different ways, but in just one place, where do you go? And I was like, there is no one place. You just Google things, you talk to people. So that's why I wrote the book, for somebody who's struggling a bit and needed, a bit of help. Kind of like I wrote it almost for like me from a few years ago.
Sure.
And I couldn't find an answer. And I think that's why it's done well, because people can dip in and out of it. Or sometimes people say they like to read it kind of deeper. And that's kind of like everything that I do, really. I try and say, hang on, there's a need for this. And people say, we need some help with this. And then as a teacher, that's what you do. It's like you have your learning objective, you have your thing you're trying to achieve, and you just direct everything towards it, really. So, yeah, that's where the book came. I've always loved to read and write. I'm a bit of a nerd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds to me like you're still, like as you've indicated, you're still teaching. You just wanted a bigger impact. You don't want you didn't want the 30 kids or however many kids they give you every year. I don't know how big classrooms are over there, but United States, they might be 30 kids, and you don't.
That's it.
you don't really have a choice.
No. And it's crazy. So like, if I do an online training session now and there's like 300 people there, that's 300 people who then go back to 300 different companies with all their staff. And the numbers are pretty boggling. And it's not for a vanity metric. It's like you say, it's an impact thing. It's like if you can help 300 people rather than 3. And the thing is as well, I think, you know this about forming relationships with people, like genuine relationships. If you can build a rapport with somebody pretty quickly through just being authentic and, kind, then they open their mind. They're willing to, like, for an hour, they're like, okay, I'll let you teach me something. Because that seems to be the problem I have with adults as opposed to maybe children. They might be sat there like, I know this already, or I've done this before. And I think that's where a lot of people have struggled, but also grown in the last couple of years, because we've all had to learn, haven't we? Whether we've liked to or not, we've all had to kind of go, oh, wait, I don't actually know everything, or I don't know, as much as I thought I did maybe.
Well, I mean, I guess for me, learning is, I don't want to say we need to be spoon-fed, but you need to take it in and then kind of digest it, right? I mean, if it's just learning, okay, stop. I need to figure out what it is I've gotten. And when you get too much, your mind shuts down.
No, you're right. No, that's what I call proper or deep learning. Like people these days, and again, I'm not, I don't want to be disrespectful, but somebody might say to me, I've learned that because I watched a video. And I'm like, you've not. You've watched a video. Proper deep learning to change the grooves in your brain and to be able to recall it without any notes. That's hard. That's why that's why as a primary school teacher, you make learning fun, because it's difficult. People think children just absorb things easily. They don't. They've got to work really hard at it, and that's why you're going to make it fun. So you're right with adults. They need that time to reflect. They like to talk as well, adults. They like to learn a bit, chat about it, say, oh, how do you think? I think this. Oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. And then do a bit more. You can't just hit them with 3 hours of material or something like that.
No, yeah. It's mind-boggling. So you had this idea. How did you kind of get it going? I mean, there's a lot. Every day somebody takes a shower and has an idea, right? And it's
Oh, that's a really good question. It's funny. I've actually been talking to my mum. So my mum is my PA, so she works for me, right? And I've become obsessed with completing things at the moment. So like rather than having an idea, it's like actually doing it, actually completing it, and taking it off. And I think that's the thing. If you look at like people who they couldn't call imaginative or creative, these days that means they have lots of ideas. Whereas you go back 400 years, it'll be a man or a woman who take an idea, conceptualize it, and then make it real, and then be able to look at the thing completed. They, like Leonardo da Vinci, they'd make something. So I started with this massive idea of, right, I'm going to help 1 billion people. Because I just, like you say, out of the classroom, I just think, hang on, let's go for the whole world here. Why not? Aim high. And I bootstrapped it, the whole thing. And I look back on it and think it was pretty mad. I didn't take any loans. I had no clients. It was strange. I remember my first ever client was a business coach. And he came to me. I was like, you're a business coach? Like, why are you coming to me? And he's like, I need you to help me with my mindset, my fitness. I was like, I can do that. And he got great results. So in answer to your question, it was like massive kind of desire. Like it's almost like there was my life before what happened that I told you, and then there was life afterwards. And I've realized now, and I carry this appreciation for life. Like, I haven't got time to mess around. When you commit 100%, you'll know this. You just find a way. And I look back on the first year, and it's crazy the things we did. Like I did a marathon because I wanted to raise money for charity, and I did all these different things. And I look back now and think I wouldn't have done it that way now. But at the time, it was perfect.
Yeah.
So it's just been quite organic, really. And I think as well, it's like you said before, it's built on relationships. There's 2 things I wish someone had told me when I started business. First is that it's not what you do, it's how you do it, right? You can be really good at what you do, but if the art of doing business with you isn't enjoyable, no one's going to want to work with you. Right. I was amazed by that, because all these skills I have from teaching, they're not, teachers don't realize how special they are. The emotional intelligence they have, the way they can do assessment, the way they can manage people. They are leaders. So all these skills, I realized they're actually really useful for business. And the second thing is that when you start a business, no one cares. Nobody cares. You care. Right. To you, it's your baby, isn't it? You care.
Sure.
You care so much, but nobody else cares. You got to make them care. You got to give them reasons to care, and that passion you've got to have that, in my opinion, because I don't know. Otherwise, it just becomes like a job, maybe. I don't know. I don't really fancy having one of those.
Yeah. No, I think you're done. I think you're done being employed, right?
Yeah, I know. Someone said that to me once. Said, "You do realize how unemployable you are now?" It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So
Well, but that's good. You have control over your existence, and it's. I was
yeah,
on. I was interviewed on a podcast earlier. We were talking about kind of this very same thing, and it's you know you've figured out what you need to do.
oh
You
yeah,
just need to do it now. It
yeah.
doesn't make it any easier, but you're a
No,
leg up on someone who hasn't figured it out yet.
oh yeah, that's so true. And for so many people, that's why I like to help them with things like vision.
Right.
As a leader and as a business owner, as you know, you need that vision. No one's going to give it to you, and that's really difficult. Like you say, sometimes it can be hard because you can see exactly where you want to go
Right.
because you got the vision, but you're like, how? I have no idea. So you're right. It can be very useful, but sometimes it can be frustrating as well
Yeah.
because you don't quite know the how yet, and that can be and timing. I think as well. You can't rush things. I'm starting to learn that you can't force things if it's not the right timing. You you should respect that. I think as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah. You had mentioned that you have this skill set being a teacher. And
Yeah.
I think there's incredible patience there. I couldn't do it. There's incredible patience there.
Yeah.
And as you indicated, I mean, you really have to have a relationship with your students, and that carries over well into the business world.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
At what point did you realize that there was this carryover?
Uh, I think one of the big moments was where I live. So I live in Lancashire in the northwest of England, and there was like a government scheme where if you're new to business, you can go to some free workshops and they'll help you, build your business, get a
Right.
marketing plan, all this kind of stuff. And I was watching this guy, and he gave a really good one on sales, and I was thinking he's really good, and I was thinking I'd like to be able to deliver one of those for them one day. And 6 months later, I was delivering one for that exact company, and I'm like, hang on a second, this is working really well. And I think also as well, I did my first training session for 50 teachers in Liverpool, 50 Scouse women, mainly women. And they're sat there going like, what do you know about stress? What do you know here? With their arms folded. And it went incredibly well. And then somebody went on LinkedIn that night saying, finally, some practical advice on stress and health and well-being, something practical. And I realized I'd bridged that gap between the public and kind of private sector, and that they'd always been talking anyway. It's just when you're in a teaching, you're in this kind of bubble, and then sometimes in business, you're not aware of the educational sector. So I think it was firstly that, and then it just grew. And the more group training I did, the more I realized, and I think online learning as well has really, really reminded me how important it is to be a good teacher,
Mm-hmm.
because engagement is massive online. When you're a teacher, one of the first things you learn is it doesn't matter what you're teaching them, they have to care. So if you're with a bunch of 7-year-olds and you've got a cardboard box, you've got to be like, oh, Frank, what's in the box? Do you want to see what's in the box? And you got to make it, what's in the box? And there's nothing in this box, but they've got to really care. And it's the same kind of thing with online learning. If I don't bring the energy online, people just switch off. So that's what we call engagement. And then there's different ways of differentiating learning objectives and all these kinds of things. I'm like,
right.
So, and then I'm getting feedback from people saying, you're better than other trainers. I'm like, are other trainers not like this? They say, no, they're very boring and they just read PowerPoints. And I'm like, that's not training. That's not teaching. I don't know what that is, but it's not good enough for people.
Right.
So I guess there was a variety of things, but feedback as well from clients, people telling me, which is essential from teaching, because you should be what they call a reflective practitioner. You're only as good as your last lesson. So if you've delivered a rubbish training course, you need to have a kind of good look at yourself. Equally, if it's gone really well and people have given you good feedback, you think, why have they enjoyed that? Oh, I can do that again. So it's a variety of things, I'd say, not only just one thing.
Yeah. Here we are. This is coming out in August 2021. We're, knock wood, we're almost through COVID. I don't know what the world could be back in turmoil by the time this comes out. Who knows? But I think it's I think COVID has probably helped you in the sense that people are more open to this now.
Yeah.
Whereas they weren't before. Obviously you've done things in the UK what other countries? I mean, are you worldwide sorts of things?
Yeah, it is now. So I'd started to branch out into worldwide about a year and a half before COVID. So I'd done stuff in Europe, and some of my clients are kind of around the world. And you're right, it did just accelerate that. My clients were happy to do online sessions that led to clients in different countries. And I did a talk for some students at Stockholm Uni in Sweden. And what I realized is the kind of stuff I do is generic in a good way, meaning it will work in a majority of countries. It's not just an English or an American thing. So I'm very fortunate in that it does seem to have that kind of global, I don't know, allure. I mean, countries like Ghana in Africa. I was talking to somebody and she said, "Oh, they'll love you there," because they're so keen to learn and so keen to try and improve. And equally in Mumbai in India as well, same kind of thing. Bangladesh is another one.
Right.
So it's really cool when I talk to people from those countries and they say, we've got a massive appetite for learning and development and to have good people, So I am very fortunate that, it kind of sped up what I was going to do anyway. I was going to go online more, and I was going to leverage the internet. And I think as well, it's almost like money. There's that old thing that money makes you more of who you are. So if you're very kind, you'll be very kind with your money. If you're very stingy, you're stingy with your money. And it's almost like COVID's been the same thing. If you're an angry person, I bet you got, very angry recently. Or if you're a scared person, you got scared. And I think it's been a big amplifier in good and bad ways for a lot of different things,
Yeah.
I was just watching today Wimbledon in England, obviously the tennis, and there's a lady in the royal box and she helped to develop a vaccine in like less than a year. It usually takes 10 years. I mean, it's incredible, a wonderful, positive thing. But then on the flip side of that, as you know, you have the death count that you can't get away from. So, it's been a wonderful, paradoxical time, really. And it's funny, I was just doing something about this yesterday, and there's a guy called Matt Ridley. Don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
And he has a book called Rational Optimism. You'd like it. And he basically just says all these people that have predictions of where it's going to go next and all that, economy, sport. He did some research. They're always wrong. Like he categorically, the people say, "Oh, it's definitely going to do this," and he followed it up and followed the dates and the data, and they're actually wrong. So I try to not be that person that goes, "Oh yeah, this is going to happen next year." Right? I don't think that's my place, So I kind of ride it with people and help them along the way. And the vision is very important, but vision can change as well and adapt as necessary. But it's been a heck of a year and a half. So be interesting to see what the next year and a half brings as well.
Yeah, it's life is what you make of it. You probably I get messages on LinkedIn. How are you doing in these terrible times? Blah blah blah. It's like, I mean, it can be terrible. I mean, it's I've known people who've died. It's terrible. But I've seen a lot of good too. I've seen a lot of good. And the vaccine. What is this going to do for treatment of cancer, treatment of other types of ailments worldwide?
Definitely.
And there's going to be an impact, and a positive impact. I think there's a positive impact of, you and I wouldn't be talking but for it. I mean, it's, it's just, I start backtracking all the connections, and it's like, okay, I used Zoom for podcasting. That was it. Everything else was on the phone. And a phone, us sitting here looking at one another, we could be having a cup of coffee, and or water as you're drinking and I'm drinking. But nonetheless, the way there's a more of a connection here between us. And in fact, somebody reached out to me the other day and wanted a schedule, and I just responded back. They got on my schedule and they said, "Hey, well, they scheduled as a phone call." I'm like, "Why are we doing a phone call? That makes no sense."
Old school. I
mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you're going to be traveling, okay, fine. If that's the only time we can do it, I get it. But if you're going to be stationary and I'm going to be stationary, why don't we do this? The connection, the physical connection, certainly the just the interaction, being able to read somebody's face, okay, are they kidding or they're really serious point? So
definitely.
But let's, let's talk about Kataholos a little bit and where you're going with it, how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, just people can connect with me on LinkedIn. So just Michael Quigley. There's not that many Michael Quigleys. There's an American guy in Texas, and apparently I'm like number 2 on Google compared to him. So if you type in my name, like he's there first.
Well, you know what? This is a total aside. I just think I can't find any Frank Agans out there. I'm the only one. That's pretty cool.
You're doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's another Michael Quigley. But I'll type a name in there. I've got a friend. Her name is Sajal Thacker. From India.
Amazing. Man.
I'll type it in and there's like 60 of them. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So that's like Smith over there. It's like, all right.
Yeah. Crazy,
to me, yeah. So anyhow, you're on LinkedIn. And
LinkedIn's good. The thing is as well, because Kataholos is a made-up word and it's so kind of unique, if you just Google it, it brings up our website, brings up our YouTube channel. We've got all the different social media platforms. On the website, I like to write blogs, and people tend to read those because they're almost like I go pretty deep when I write them, So people like that. There's free resources and PDFs on there. YouTube channel's got like 125 odd videos, professional development, stuff like that. So I say to people, just watch the free content, enjoy that. That gives you a feel for who we are, Right. Because I understood quite quick that we're a B2B company, and I work with companies and organizations. We're not a B2C company. However, I believe that businesses should benefit everybody, not necessarily, in terms of money. So, like Google gives you Google search for free. So that's why I want to keep making things and books and, podcasts and blogs and things and content so that, I don't know, you're Sarah, a teacher from Illinois, and it's Thursday evening and you're shattered and you just need some motivation. You just click on a video and watch 2 minutes and you think, right, I feel better now. So that's what I like to do. So so just Google Kataholos. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, watch the free content, and then just send me a message, email me. It's all my details quite easy to find. Again, just the fact because it's Kataholos, it's only one. You just Google it. It's just us. The whole thing is quite fortunate, actually.
Yeah. Well, and for those listening, I will put the website in the show notes, but it's Kataholos. Yep. I'll have that information in the show notes, and
thanks, Frank.
That just makes it easier.
It does, yeah.
So, well, I really appreciate your time on the program today.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely to just have a chat. I remember when we first met, and we just talked about all sorts of things, and it's great to just talk about people and situations and things. And if even just one or two of the things we talked about today help somebody, and they said, you know what, I like that, or that's helped me with that, then it's been worthwhile, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
All right. To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.